It makes me nervous because this is here, right? And then you have to think, can the apron do it too? Because I haven't done it with the apron. And then you go, okay, cool, we got one. Can we do another one? Okay, cool, got two. And then you go, that's proven malleability, you know? It works. Hello, welcome back. This is part 2. I hope you had a good holiday. It's an MCD Monday right now. We're gonna get the second session of the Vivian update for you guys that we split in 2 because it was so long. We do need to be mindful of this stuff. Like I know with the Fab Diaries and things like that, it's easy for a lot of you hardcore guys to, for you guys to sit and watch a long episode, but for like a lot of general YouTube stuff, to keep it shorter, like, you know, at least sub 30 minutes is better. So welcome back, enjoy part 2. I think we'll get the Saber light in the cab and we'll just do like a twofer in the cab because I know on my list I don't have the stuff that we're gonna, you know, have done for this next installment, but at least I can kind of go over stuff with you because I know it in my head. And we'll just be able to cover it all in one. I think one of the other things too is before last episode testing, we didn't have the front glass in. Just a couple details I'll run through. So Mike's always came through with us on the glass. The front glass is what we have in. We have the rear glass that's being cut, and then we've got the front window glass and the side glass that just needs to be installed. So it'll leave with that as well. Another little detail here is the race radio mount, the antenna mount. This is where the factory antenna mount was, and I just kind of came up with a clever way to sink that thing in and French it in a way where it almost acts like a factory antenna, and it makes sense as like a kind of a period correct little addition instead of just having your typical antenna off the back. We have the GPS antenna rear center back there, and you don't really want to have the race radio antenna and the GPS antenna too close to each other, so it just made sense to kind of incorporate into here and have that factory farm truck pickup antenna look. One of the other things that I really enjoy putting into the cars is dead pedals, not just for the driver but for all the occupants, especially the driver and the passenger. But we also got one here for the third guy or gal. You can see this is our typical kind of dead pedal, and what this allows is it allows you to brace for things, and it allows you to secure your body in a different way where you're not just having flappy foot, and especially when you're operating foot controls with your feet, and you're bouncing around or you're in the chop, you want to be able to brace yourself in a way that gives you more control. And not only that, but if you're going to have some kind of an impact or you know something's coming up, you can always step on that and stomp on it to the point where you can really tie yourself into the seat and secure yourself for safety. We have these not just for the driver, but we have one for the third seat. So obviously this is just a bolt-on thing. It picks up these holes are the mounting locations here are the same mounting locations for the panel. So we didn't have to make anything new. It's got just clean, simple broke edges on here that notches around the tube. Again, just implementing good design into stuff is huge around here. So making where this all flows, you know, you can kind of see the passenger over there too, and they're all tied in together. Another thing we added was, you know, that we had this void here. This is kind of for the panel work under there, so I'm not going to take that tape off because it looks like it has an indicator there. But we left this portion of the dash open because we wanted to put the mob armor mount in here for a tablet. So now this thing's got provisions for a tablet. It's set up to kind of run all as one display here, or it can be favored to your passenger there. So tablets right there, which is dangerous. And then we'll go look at the other side. One of the other things, well, I don't know. I think it's tricky because we're kind of covering stuff that's, we didn't get an update in before we took our testing. So there's some stuff I'm just kind of going over that I've added that I wanted to note that we just didn't get to cover. The front windshield cowl trim is another thing too. It's a 3-piece situation. So the middle portion here, let me scooch up a little bit. The middle portion here can come out without the sides, just in case you need to get into the engine bay area there. That can come out, and it can also come out in the truck, so you don't have to like pull the glass or anything. But this is a really nice addition in here. It seals everything up. The sun visors have been added in here. These are just your classic like mechanical sun visors. Nothing special to them, just kind of rudimentary design, but they work when you need them. The only thing is, like, when you sit in this truck, you're pretty far away from that portion where like the upper windshield tube is. So getting to these, you need to have your harnesses off. You're not going to be able to adjust them on the fly. Something else to look at is the cab mounting. So scooch this light over. The upper sill on the door openings here is all 1/8 inch chromoly with 3/16 rivets all popped in here. And again, this is welded to the chassis. So all you do, if you had to like replace this portion, you would just drill these out. And then once the cab goes on and it's seated where it needs to be, you just drill your holes. You almost use this chromoly plate as a template, and you just drill into the cab and you just set rivets or clecos to hold a couple, but you get the gist of it. That's the tie-in up there. There's also another set like that down on the A pillar. So you can see back here, that's all welded, all chromoly plate, and then it's tied in with staggered rivets into the cab. Again, that's just into the factory sheet metal on the cab, so you're not actually having to add anything. Another detail that's just kind of important to note, especially if you're building something, is firewall unit ball, firewall unit ball, firewall unit ball, firewall unit ball, firewall unit ball. You get a firewall unit ball. Just have a firewall unit ball, and that firewall unit ball is going to be a firewall unit ball for your steering column. Goes in there. You don't have to have like a big hole in the firewall with like a rubber boot. It just keeps things super clean and simple. 3/4 ID. You just go with a steering shaft through there, and it's got like flanges to bolt to the firewall, and it has a uniball. So you just run through that thing, and it cleans things up, and it pivots to wherever you need the steering angle or the steering shaft angle to be. Bear with us just as far as under construction on some of this. Like, I'm looking at this panel. It is buttoned up with the fender washers that hold the dash, but it also needs its secondary mounting here to close it up. This was a trim panel I wanted to get going, and we'll talk about the wiring in a second. But this was a trim panel I wanted just because I would look under there and it was just so unfinished. The dash, would come down and it would just end, and you'd just see like harness and wires and plugs and things, and it doesn't like look like everything else. And just to have everything kind of enclosed and have that extra detail of trim and like sealed up makes sense to me. So that's what we added under there. And then also you can see the big boy dead pedal here, like just for reference. Those are big flared holes, and this is the best gripping one I've ever felt. I don't think it would be fun if you were barefoot, but with shoes on, you really are able to adjust your feet in different ways and just be comfortable. So another thing that's going to be on that whiteboard is finish enclosing the cab. So this thing is closed off, but it is not closed off. There's areas, especially in the extra cab area, that need you know, enclosure, just going from like chassis tube to cab sheet metal. So like one of the big ones is this guy, right? This is your extra cab door sill, and then boom, you can see like your B pillar, C pillar tube is here, your exhaust is here, your sheet metal's here, and that goes all the way through here. No secrets in this one. So this is all open. What we'll do is we'll sheet metal in, just make really easy and nice stuff that ties this in and closes it in. And then we're gonna need to do the same in this pocket here. So you can see there's a cyclone light tab and there's some of the shock there. That's all gonna get closed in. So it's essentially going to be a sealed truck. Won't be airtight, but it'll definitely be pickup truck style sealed. There's some access panels here for the shocks that are great, but they do need to be filled just with some quarter turn stuff, and that'll close that off, and then we'll kind of be in a good spot here. We did grip tape on the footwell down there for Eric's feet, but we'll probably want to incorporate that even more. It was just a temporary because we didn't have the final coatings on any of the panels in here, so I didn't want to like go too hard. We did talk about doing like boat decking on this stuff, but I think that's for round 2. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is this truck will be, it's gonna go a season and it'll be finished. It'll have proper hardware in it. Everything will be buttoned up. All the rivets, like you'll see we like staggered the rivets just to get it out for Halloween, but everything will be finalized. It just won't be fully coated like we want it. We're gonna wanna blow it apart again and really beautify it, maybe upholster some stuff, and just give it like that next level of update. So we're just getting it to a point here where it can be used and enjoyed and maintained, and then it'll come back again and you guys can join us again for like the next set. One other thing I'd like to get into where we need kind of a close-up is we have a void here of sheet metal. You know, as far as the cab goes, we raised the window up so the sill is all retained, but there is a void here. Some of this needs to be filled in, and then we left this panel open here. If you can kind of see past the fire bottle here, we left this open. So these Zeus buttons actually they're just ghost right now, phantom Zeus buttons. These will come out, and then a panel will go in here, and that'll kind of clean that whole area up and tie it in and just make it go away. I want to seal the whole thing. And then the same with this void here. So the void from the chassis tube that runs along here, and the bedside here all the way to where the spare is, I want to just close that whole triangle up and just get a bunch of sheet metal in there. I'm not too concerned about where the tire goes here. I'd just like to get that, so trim panel there, trim panel up top, and same on this side. Another kind of line item as far as just like aesthetics and finish work on here is door cards. These are just roughed in right now. Obviously the only thing that needed to be like established on this was the surface change here for the lock mechanism, and then, well, I guess not the lock mechanism, but just the knob for the lock mechanism kind of does something different here on the surface. So a notch for that, and then the window crank. Everything else is pretty wide open, so what we'll do is we'll probably just put some good design that makes sense in here with the step roll on the bead roller. If we want to open up something with like a mesh cutout, maybe where a speaker would go, I like to do that. But this kind of trim work is very satisfying to me. It's an instant gratification kind of thing. You get really good results. You take something that's just, you know, under here is essentially just kind of an ugly, raw, open thing, and then you get to cover it, and this already kind of cleans it up. And then once you start to add some detail into here, it just kind of makes it part of the truck and completes it. So look for these to be completed. Let's go to the rear really quick, and then we'll take a look at the whiteboard. This thing is straight from the sand dunes into the shop. It is a raw chassis, so the pressure washing and cleaning element is non-existent, because if we were to just pressure wash this and not blow everything off of it and wipe everything down, the rust would be imminent. So it's still got stuff on it, but I just wanted to kind of cover what we have back here as far as what we're going to do for any kind of stuff that needs to be buttoned up. Everything's worked successfully. The only trim we're going to add is some kind of, this is just a zip tied license plate. So we're going to put a panel in here, just kind of an enclosure panel, possibly incorporate the license plate into the trim panel. And then also the jack, we're going to put a Pro Eagle jack here. It's not going to be your typical orientation. Like, I guess your typical would be it just lays down flat, like the bottom of the jack's like this, wherever. We're going to stab that thing. If you look at the side profile of a jack, it's got like a high point and it's got a low point, almost like a triangle, like an isosceles or something. So we'll make like a register in here where this thing can kind of go and slide down and be right here and go down in there, and it won't upset the tires either. You can kind of already see where the hooks are. So we have quite a bit of room here where we can get that dialed. Figure out where the jack handle goes. Those are never really a big deal, but we wanted to make sure we had the jack in there. The other stuff on the list, like the speed case, some of the recovery items and things like that, can all go in that back little storage trough that we have back there. Pretty small list, actually. This thing was stocked before. We're kind of in between now, and it's nice to see it. So I'll run down this really quick and then we'll hit it again. Fabricate mirrors, I put class 1 billet with a question mark. Brake caliper fix, belly skid, rear caliper, back glass, side glass, finished cab and sheet metal, powder coat light bar, door cards, which are essentially just door panels, complete front panels, weld hood frame, shifter. So also the mob armor order, that'll go to the shifter phone holder, powder coat suspension, paint axle housing or powder, mount jack, jack handle, speed case, strap, front brake plumbing, engine accessory drive, and skid powder, limit strap bungee, third pedal rear brake with caliper, and rear fuel tank tin. Man, it felt like, I almost felt like I was doing an assignment. That did not feel good or smooth or any of that positive stuff. That felt really kind of dug at me there. So some of this we talked about already. So fabricated mirrors, I put class 1 billet with a question mark. We talked about just getting a lens, finding a nice like mirror lens, and then building a big fabricated unit to go to it. But I think with the truck, like, that's a very race car-y kind of thing, and I think with that being like kind of like a retro desert hot rod, there's some billet, like very simple shaped billet, like class 1 or 4-seat car mirrors that I've seen. They're all aluminum. They're not like the side-by-side crazy things that are out now. It's just very simple mirrors, so we'll probably end up going with those. The brake caliper fix, just notice the tab on one of the front calipers that's on the upright that was already there. It's kind of rubbing a little bit, so we're going to address that. The belly skid is something we talked about already. The rear caliper is something we're going to add to the axle. We're going to add a handbrake and just a secondary caliper, so that's something we'll get from Jmar, but we just want to at least tab it before we paint it. The glass we kind of talked about. Finished cab and sheet metal we talked about. The powder coat light bar, so that would be the light bar box. Let's just talk about powder coating for a second. So we're going to want to powder coat kind of everything that comes off the truck, blow the thing apart, powder coat. We talked about powder coating the chassis originally. That's just not an endeavor we're going to do right now, and that's not something that Eric's willing to do. He's wanting to just YOLO and get the truck and use it and whatever. I can let some of that slide, but the things that are bolted to the truck, like it's hard for me to relinquish something like that and rely on the client to take care of it. And we've built all this beautiful stuff, so we're gonna blow all this stuff off and powder coat everything we can, paint everything else. and then send it off like that. When we do that, we'll also put all the RPI 12-point hardware into all the places that matter on like the landing gear and crucial pivot areas. So that's that. Door cards, we talked about those. The front panels we talked about. Welded hood frame, Colin welded it. We saw it over there. That's completely done. The shifter phone holder. So there's on the shifter, like on all these gate shifters, they have like this nasty bracketry that hangs off the back that kind of holds the cable to like slide in and out. And we wanted, there's a place like a real estate area there where we can put a phone. I'm going to look into the Mob Armor stuff just because they've worked with us on that truck. They've already taken care of the tablet thing, so they might have a solution for us for the phone too before we build something there. Powder coat suspension, we have all that. Mount jack, we talked about all that stuff for mounting in the rear. Front brake plumbing, so with the lower arms, we didn't really touch them. We didn't add them, they're just the Jubera arms. They already had brake lines on there, but they had like your auto store special with like that olive green steel line and like weird clips and all the bullshit. So just to get everything matching and standardized on the truck, we're gonna go back and just put a nice stainless line in there, and all -3 and just do it all proper. So that'll happen once the powder coating is done. Engine accessory drive. So we have a new engine going in, same thing, 454 LSX with some headwork. That I just want to verify what we got going on with the alternator because there was problems, so we might end up having to modify the alternator. Not a huge deal. Skid powder coating, just all those are just notes for me to remember as far as like gloss and satin blacks and what finish they're gonna have. Limit strap bungee is just like it sounds. The rear axle, the limit straps on the rear are you know, they're mid-20s long, so when they compress, they can go every which way, and getting that kind of if that just happened to play the cards right and like intertwine with the bump stop, you know, and land in the middle of that, it would just damage it or cause it to fail. So just need to have like a bungee that goes through that keeps tension on them even when they're in the compression zone. Ooh, that was kind of, yeah. Third pedal rear brake. With the caliper, we talked about the caliper. I want to implement a different way of hitting a rear brake or like a hand brake style thing. I don't think that you need to use your hand. I think there's another win to get where you can focus more on keeping your hands on the wheel. Like a driving dynamic, especially with an off-road vehicle, in my opinion, you want to have your hands on the wheels, or the wheels. You want to have your hands on the wheel as much as you can. Even when you're shifting, you're still taking your hand off the wheel, and it's compromising your actual reaction and your ability to control the car. So the least amount of time you can have your hands off, the better. So I'm going to have a solution for that that we'll get into when that time comes. So we'll just leave it at that. But we're going to prepare the car for a secondary brake caliper on the rear. We're just not going to finalize any of that yet. And then the rear fuel tank tin is something we already talked about, so that closes it out. All right, so this is our kind of second crunch. This is Colin's baby. We'll probably have to put another guy on this just to help him out to get our timeline kind of met with this end of December thing. We'll try to get some stuff up on the dyno, and then we'll get another update in before Eric takes her home completely. I hope you guys kind of got caught up and got a good sense of what's going on in this thing. If you have anything you see in here that you'd like me to go put a little more time and depth into explaining or running through a process, do that. Continue with the Fab Diaries stuff. We kind of take notes, and we're gonna just start stacking Fab Diaries. I know I've said that, but just, I promise you, you have my word. The Fab Diaries are gonna just keep getting gnarlier and gnarlier. Thank you guys so much for the support. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day.